Let's be real, most people think 1950s sci-fi was just guys in rubber suits running from tinfoil spaceships. But what if I told you those old movies predicted your entire streaming lineup and rewired how we dream about the future? Some of these films didn't just push boundaries, they broke them wide open, changing movies forever. Are you ready to see the classics that dared to think decades ahead of their time? Let's fire up the ray guns and jump in, because these aren't your granddad's B-movies. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. If you think every alien invasion movie is just an excuse for mass panic, you clearly haven't met Klaatu. The Day the Earth Stood Still landed in theaters when Americans were living with daily Cold War anxiety and nuclear nightmares. But instead of rolling out another bug-eyed monster, this film gave us something much scarier. An alien who wanted to save us from ourselves and was willing to wipe us out if we didn't listen. The setup is iconic. A flying saucer lands on the Washington Mall. Out steps Klaatu with a warning. Humanity needs to shape up or face cosmic consequences. With his indestructible robot sidekick, Gort, Klaatu walks through a world gripped by paranoia and suspicion, and suddenly the real monster is human fear itself. What made this film so ahead of its time? It was science fiction as social commentary, with a message as sharp as a laser beam. If we can't get along, we don't deserve to survive. Michael Rennie's haunting, gentle performance turned the alien invader trope inside out. And that famous line, "The decision rests with you," still chilling. The Day the Earth Stood Still didn't just thrill audiences, it forced them to look in the mirror. How many movies can say that? The Thing from Another World, 1951. Before John Carpenter gave us nightmares in the 80s, the Arctic was already ground zero for paranoia, ice-cold isolation, and one nasty shape-shifting visitor. The Thing from Another World dropped viewers into a frozen research station, where the enemy wasn't just the cold, it was an alien that could mimic life and turn trust into a death sentence. This movie grabs you with its relentless pacing. There's no safe place, no final girl. Just a team of scientists and soldiers who start to wonder if the real threat is the creature or their own inability to work together. Forget cozy, old-school monster movies. This one was all claustrophobic dread and hard-boiled dialogue. What makes it truly ahead of its time? The Thing from Another World was one of the first sci-fi films to blur the line between science and fear. Instead of ray guns and robots, it's all about uncertainty. Who do you trust? Can you even trust yourself? It's a playbook modern thrillers still copy. By the end, you're left with more questions than answers. That's the mark of a film that didn't just want to scare you, it wanted to haunt you. When Worlds Collide, 1951. You think you've seen end-of-the-world blockbusters? The truth is, When Worlds Collide beat everyone to the punch and did it with 1950s style and a little bit of jaw-dropping spectacle. This film was disaster cinema before that was even a thing, showing Earth doomed by a rogue star on a crash course, and a desperate race to build a rocket that could save a lucky few. What set it apart wasn't just the special effects, though for its era, the destruction of cities and tidal waves crashing down was absolutely wild. It was the sheer audacity of its plot. While most movies back then tiptoed around disaster, When Worlds Collide pulled no punches. People panicked, governments failed, and the rich tried to buy tickets to survival. Sound familiar? That's because this movie set the template for every disaster flick that came after, from Armageddon to Deep Impact. The kicker? The rocket actually works, and the survivors watch their home planet get destroyed as they head toward a new world. It's as optimistic as it is brutal. When Worlds Collide isn't just about spectacle, it's about what humanity does when faced with extinction. If that doesn't scream ahead of its time, what does? The Man from Planet X, 1951. Want a weird little gem that feels more like a fever dream than a standard creature feature? Enter The Man from Planet X. Set on foggy Scottish moors, shot entirely on a Hollywood soundstage, by the way, this movie ditches giant monsters and goes for full-on atmosphere, with an alien visitor whose motives are, let's say, complicated. This is not your typical alien bad humans good story. The Man from Planet X is about first contact from the perspective of suspicion, curiosity, and growing terror. The alien, with its oversized head and haunting eyes, is less a villain than a cosmic question mark, Are we being invaded, studied, asked for help? You never really know, and that's the genius of it. What made it ahead of its time? For one, it's relentlessly ambiguous. There's a streak of melancholy running through it, a sense that we might not be ready for the answers the universe has for us. Instead of spectacle, it delivers mood, something that would influence generations of indie sci-fi and atmospheric horror. It's a low-budget masterclass in making your audience uncomfortable, decades before unsettling became the buzzword of smart sci-fi. It came from outer space, 1953. Ever wonder where the "maybe the aliens aren't evil" plot twist really started? You can thank It Came from Outer Space for breaking that ground. This one's a desert-set thriller with a twist. The aliens don't actually want to hurt us. They're just trying to get home. But paranoia runs rampant, and soon it's humans causing all the trouble. The film is famous for its use of 3D, making meteors and UFOs fly straight at the audience. But beneath the spectacle, there's a surprising amount of nuance. Our hero, John Putnam, is the only one willing to see things from the outsider's perspective. He's mocked, threatened, and doubted. Sound like any modern sci-fi protagonists, you know? What really puts this movie ahead of its time is its empathy. While most 50s sci-fi was selling fear, It Came from Outer Space was selling understanding. The aliens are just passing through, and their biggest sin is looking weird. By the end, you're left wondering who the real threat is. This film set a standard for misunderstood visitors that movies and TV still can't shake. It's proof you don't need a giant bug to shake up the system, just a little perspective. This Island Earth, 1955. Some movies want to entertain you, others want to blow your mind. This Island Earth does both, and in radiant technicolor no less. Instead of hiding its sci-fi wildness, this film shoves it front and center: mysterious scientific gadgets, intergalactic distress calls, and aliens with massive foreheads who look like they stepped straight out of a comic book fever dream. The plot kicks off when a scientist receives strange parts in the mail and unknowingly assembles a communication device for beings from another world. Before he can say, "Return to sender," he's whisked away to the planet Metaluna, a place at war where the aliens are desperate for help. But the trip isn't a simple rescue mission. The film veers into cosmic horror, with mutated monsters and a dying world under threat from intergalactic war. What made this movie way ahead of its time? It took the idea of interplanetary travel and gave it emotional stakes, with visuals and themes that inspired everything from Contact to Star Trek. This Island Earth wasn't just pulp. It was a love letter to curiosity, warning of the price of progress and the cost of looking too far, too fast. Even today, its wild ideas and psychedelic set design feel like a blueprint for the future of sci-fi. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Want to know why your friends get suspicious when you act a little off? Blame this movie. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is the granddaddy of paranoia, a film that turned small-town comfort into full-blown existential dread. The setup is deceptively simple. Townspeople are being replaced by emotionless pod people, and nobody seems to notice except one terrified doctor. This isn't just a monster flick, it's a commentary on conformity, trust, and the terror of losing your identity, a sci-fi metaphor that hits just as hard now as it did in the 50s. Every shadow, every awkward silence, every neighbor acting a bit too friendly becomes a red flag. Is it a warning about communism? About blind faith? About groupthink? Pick your poison. This movie's ambiguity is exactly why it keeps you up at night. Its influence is everywhere, from modern horror to political satire. The creeping sense that the world you know is changing, that you might wake up as someone else, is the ultimate nightmare. No rubber monsters, no ray guns, just the fear that even your best friend could suddenly be a stranger. That's a horror that never goes out of style. Earth vs. the Flying Saucers, 1956. If you've ever watched a UFO spin across the screen and thought, "Hey, that looks familiar," you owe it to Ray Harryhausen and Earth vs. the Flying Saucers. This isn't just another Little Green Men movie, it's the film that defined the visual language of alien invasion for the next half-century. Shiny saucers zoom over Washington, D.C., zapping monuments and military bases with gleeful abandon. What makes this one stand out? It's all in the details. Harryhausen's stop-motion effects gave the saucers an eerie, otherworldly motion that was both unsettling and mesmerizing. No other film made flying saucers look so real, so dangerous, and so cool. But there's more here than eye candy. The movie is loaded with Cold War anxiety, military skepticism, and the classic scientist versus the system struggle. And don't overlook the film's sly humor. Scientists with ray guns, generals barking orders at flying discs, and a climax that sends the saucers crashing into the Lincoln Memorial. Earth vs. the Flying Saucers is a popcorn thrill ride with just enough brains to make you wonder who's really calling the shots, us or the visitors watching from above. Forbidden Planet 1956. If science fiction ever got its big leap, it happened with Forbidden Planet. This movie isn't just ahead of its time, it feels like it came from another galaxy. Imagine Shakespeare's The Tempest, but in deep space, with a starship crew, an invisible monster, a planet full of ancient technology, and a robot named Robbie who could outwit half of Hollywood. The production values alone would make your head spin. Massive sets, a futuristic soundtrack, and visual effects that inspired everything from Star Trek to Star Wars. But what makes Forbidden Planet a true trailblazer is its ambition. The film explores the limits of human knowledge, the dangers of playing with powers you don't understand, and the darkness hiding in your own mind. The monster from the id isn't just sci-fi mumbo-jumbo, it's a warning that our biggest enemy is often ourselves. Walter Pidgeon's Morbius is a tragic genius. His daughter Altera is both innocent and enigmatic, and Robbie the robot became a cultural icon overnight. Forbidden Planet didn't just raise the bar, it launched it into orbit, proving sci-fi could be smart, psychological, and spectacular, all at once. The Incredible Shrinking Man 1957. Here's one that's part spectacle, part existential crisis, and all genius. The Incredible Shrinking Man takes a seemingly goofy premise. Man exposed to mysterious cloud begins to shrink and transforms it into a meditation on identity, survival, and what it really means to be human when you're the size of a bug. Scott Carey's journey from average Joe to household spec is told with both spectacle and soul. The special effects are still jaw-dropping. Imagine fighting off a house cat or doing battle with a spider that's now the size of a grizzly bear. But the movie never lets you forget the tragedy at the core. Carey's shrinking isn't just a physical ordeal, it's an emotional one. He's lost to the world, ignored by everyone, and forced to confront his own insignificance in a universe that suddenly feels infinite and indifferent. By the time Carey delivers his final monologue, realizing he still matters even if nobody else knows he exists, the film has gone somewhere most movies wouldn't dare. The Incredible Shrinking Man isn't just a monster movie, it's a philosophical gut punch, as powerful and relevant today as it was in the atomic age. Not of This Earth, 1957. If you've ever wondered how far you can stretch a sci-fi budget without losing your edge, look no further than Not of This Earth. Roger Corman's low-budget shocker spins a tale that's equal parts pulp and paranoia, following a mysterious man with hypnotic eyes and a deadly secret. He's not just strange, he's from another planet, and he's here for a blood transfusion. The movie wastes no time getting weird. The alien, played with deadpan menace by Paul Birch, moves through 1950s suburbia like a shark in a swimming pool, always calm, always hungry, and always one step away from blowing his cover. His goal? Harvest human blood to save his dying race back home, and he'll stop at nothing to get it. Cue the suspicious nurse, the confused police, and a parade of unlucky donors. What makes this film way ahead of its time isn't just the audacity of the plot, it's the way it uses sci-fi as a mirror for social anxiety. Who's really safe? Who do you trust? Is the real danger from another world or hiding next door? Not of This Earth turns budget constraints into creative fuel, leaving you with a story that's as unsettling as it is unforgettable. It's proof that sometimes the smallest movies can deliver the biggest chills. The Fly 1958. Science goes sideways, and so does your DNA. The Fly is pure body horror brilliance, a film that asks what happens when a little experiment in teleportation turns into a grotesque personal nightmare. Scientist André Delambre is driven, obsessive, and just a bit reckless, and when he tries to send himself from one transporter pod to another, He doesn't realize a housefly has come along for the ride. The results, let's just say Bad Hair Day, doesn't cover it. The movie's genius lies in its slow reveal. First, it's just odd behavior. Then, a mysterious mask. Finally, we get the gut-wrenching reveal. Andre's head and arm have fused with the flies, and he's trapped between two worlds, human and insect, brain and instinct, reason and madness. His wife's desperate attempts to save him only make things more tragic. This isn't just shock value. The Fly was way ahead of its time for putting real emotion, loss, and even love at the heart of the horror. The story is both wild and heartbreaking, showing that scientific ambition can have monstrous consequences. The film set the blueprint for decades of transformation horror, and its haunting ending still lingers long after the credits roll. Help me. If you know, you know. The Blob, 1958. Imagine a horror movie where the monster is a pink, unstoppable mass that just keeps getting bigger and hungrier. Welcome to The Blob, the cult classic that dared to make Jell-O scary and put Steve McQueen on the map. A meteorite crashes outside a small town, and what crawls out isn't a creature, it's a growing ooze that dissolves everything in its path, from old men to unlucky movie theater patrons. The genius of The Blob is its simplicity. There's no big villain speech, no alien agenda, just pure, primal fear. The more the townsfolk try to fight it, the bigger and faster it grows. Cops don't believe the kids, adults write off the warnings, and by the time anyone realizes what's happening, it's almost too late. The panic feels real because it's universal. What do you do when you can't reason with your enemy, can't bargain, and can barely run? What really made The Blob ahead of its time is its youth-driven narrative. Teenagers are the heroes here, quick-thinking, brave, and absolutely determined to save the day. It's the start of the teens take charge trend that would dominate horror and sci-fi for decades. Plus, that theme song, once you hear it, you'll never forget it. The Blob is simple, bold, and weirdly timeless. I Married a Monster from Outer Space, 1958. Let's be honest, with a title like that, you expect pure cheese. But I Married a Monster from Outer Space delivers a masterclass in slow-burn suspense, paranoia, and gender politics years ahead of its era. It starts with a newlywed couple in small-town America. The groom, after a strange encounter, starts acting distant, robotic, almost alien. Soon, his bride suspects something is deeply, horribly wrong, and she's right. This movie isn't just about an alien invasion, it's about trust, identity, and the terror of realizing someone you love might not be who you thought they were. The suspense builds as more husbands in town are replaced by emotionless doubles, and the women begin to fear for their lives and their sanity. It's a chilling metaphor for post-war anxiety, the fear of losing personal connection, and the sense that conformity is swallowing up individuality. What makes it so ahead of its time? Its willingness to blend science fiction with real, everyday fears. The film asks, how well do you really know the people closest to you, and answers with a shiver. It's not just a B-movie, it's a warning that the real monsters might be hiding in plain sight. The Colossus of New York, 1958. Ever wanted to know what happens when science refuses to let go? The Colossus of New York is the dark fairy tale of brain, brawn, and hubris gone wild. When a brilliant young scientist is killed, his father, a genius surgeon, refuses to let death have the last word. Instead, he transplants his son's brain into a hulking, steel robot body, hoping to preserve his intellect for the good of mankind. At first, the experiment seems like a success. The robot son can think, reason, and even communicate. But as his humanity slips away, the Colossus becomes increasingly isolated, tormented by what he's lost and the monstrous power he's gained. The story quickly transforms from hopeful experiment to Frankenstein nightmare, as the city faces the wrath of a being that can crush buildings and erase lives at a whim. What makes this film so forward-thinking? It's not just about big robots and mad scientists, it's about the cost of playing with life and the limits of human ambition. The Colossus of New York is part sci-fi, part tragedy, and part warning label for unchecked genius. It asks, at what point do we stop being human? And leaves you with no easy answers. Plan 9 from Outer Space, 1959. Some movies are so far ahead of their time, they loop around and become cult classics for reasons nobody expected. Enter Plan 9 from Outer Space, often called the worst movie ever made. But don't be fooled. Ed Wood's notorious tale is weirdly prophetic and bursting with offbeat energy. The story? Aliens try to stop humanity from creating a doomsday weapon by resurrecting the dead and launching an all-out invasion. Zombies, flying saucers, and cardboard gravestones. What more could you want? Here's the secret sauce. Plan 9 is so earnest, so determined to tell its bizarre story, that it accidentally rewrote the rules for outsider cinema. Its fearless mashup of horror, sci-fi, and sheer imagination inspired generations of indie filmmakers. What it lacks in Polish, it makes up for in ambition and surreal logic. Future events such as these will affect you in the future, the narrator warns. And you know what? He's right. Plan 9 predicted the future where DIY filmmakers, genre mashups, and creative risk-takers rule. It may be infamous, but its heart, vision, and unintended camp made it way ahead of the curve. The Space Children, 1958. A sci-fi film that takes the power out of the hands of generals and politicians and gives it to a group of children? That's as radical as it gets for the 1950s. The Space Children is all about a group of kids living near a missile base who come into contact with a mysterious glowing brain from outer space. The brain's mission? To stop humanity from launching a new weapon that could destroy the world. This movie isn't just about alien intervention, it's about the wisdom of innocence, the dangers of unchecked authority, and the idea that the next generation might just save us from ourselves. The story is both suspenseful and thoughtful, with moments of real tenderness and suspense. By putting children at the center of a global crisis, The Space Children breaks the mold for 50s sci-fi, anticipating the youth-led narratives and peaceful resistance stories that would become staples in later decades. It's a small movie with a massive message. The Monolith Monsters, 1957. If you thought you'd seen every kind of monster movie, think again. The Monolith Monsters trades in the usual suspects: no aliens, no bugs, no mutated reptiles. Instead, the villains are black, growing crystal monoliths that crash to Earth and start multiplying every time they touch water. Sounds strange? It is, but it's also one of the most unique and quietly terrifying movies of its era. As the crystals grow, they threaten to engulf entire towns, turning humans into stone statues. Scientists and local authorities scramble to find a solution, racing against time before the monoliths overrun everything. What makes this film ahead of its time isn't just the imaginative threat, it's the way it puts science and teamwork at the center, rather than just brute force or military might. The Monolith Monsters is smart, suspenseful, and proves that sometimes the weirdest ideas make for the most unforgettable stories. Kronos, 1957. Forget little green men or giant bugs, Kronos delivers a different kind of terror. A mindless, city-crushing robot sent to Earth to drain all its energy. This hulking geometric monster rolls across the landscape, unstoppable and hungry for power grids, nuclear plants, and anything electrical. The scientists who discover it quickly realize that this isn't just a monster, it's a harbinger of a bigger problem: our own dependence on technology and energy. Kronos is bold for its environmental message, a full decade before eco-disaster became a genre. The film warns about what happens when you ignore the consequences of technological progress, while delivering thrilling destruction scenes and clever science-based solutions. Its visuals are striking, its pace relentless, and its central threat, a machine that grows stronger the more you fight it, feels eerily prophetic in our plugged-in age. Kronos isn't just a monster flick, it's a warning shot from the past, daring us to look at the price of our own progress. So there you have it, sci-fi films from the 1950s that didn't just predict the future, they blasted it wide open. From alien invasions to shrinking men and brainy robots, these classics proved you don't need CGI or billion-dollar budgets to blow minds. Which of these forgotten trailblazers still shocks you? Drop your favorites in the comments, hit subscribe for more, and share this video with your fellow space travelers. Who knows, Maybe the next big idea is hiding in an old reel of film.